hello to the. I'm good. Are you the capital B of the Killer Bees? I mean, is there a jostling for position between?
It depends who you speak to, I suppose. I've tried to distance myself from that name as best as possible.
Right.
But I suppose,
Is that right? That wasn't really. You didn't sort of trademark that as a trio and say there's a clothing merch range in here and.
but maybe I think if the social media had been bigger back then, maybe something would have happened. But there was nothing to do back then.
Where did that come from? I bet it's a sort of headline in the Scotsman or something like that. The Killer Bees.
It was Sean Lanine.
Oh, is that what it was?
Yeah, Sean Lanine said it in a media thing, and then
Right.
media being media just thought it was brilliant, and then just I don't know, just follows around, and then it was a source of much hilarity when Scotland didn't win the game.
Amazing how
Killer Bees in Scotland couldn't win a game.
it's amazing how much shit sticks to the shoe when you don't want it to. Do you know what I mean? They
Oh
can't
yeah,
get rid of it.
100%. People still ask me that. I'm like, fucking shut up.
All right, let's move on. It's very nice to see. We were actually just trading notes on Deep Blue. Do you know what Deep Blue you rolled your walls with? This is Hicks Blue. I get asked this more. We've done 50 odd shows of Good Bad and Rugby, and the only thing people ever ask me about is what colour the walls are behind me, and who did the painting. Never anything about the show.
It's very nice. Your backdrop's lovely. Mine's in Chira Blue.
Love that. Good.
Yeah.
Chosen by you, or chosen by someone far wiser and far more adept?
Chosen by my wife's friend, who's an interior designer.
Good.
Not me.
How are you? How's life? I love the fact that for Rugby Reclined, you've actually bought a cup of coffee, which I think is the. Are you drink coffee or herbal tea?
Yeah, big coffee fan. Yeah. So, well, small coffee, strong coffee.
Mid-afternoon, much needed.
Yeah.
What's keeping you busy?
Work, real work.
Go on.
Yes, I guess when lockdown first happened, there was kind of no idea if I was going to keep playing, if I was going to stop, and then I kind of talked myself into, if I'm honest, it would have been easier to keep playing. That was the easiest way I thought I could have earned a living, and I thought the path of least resistance was to keep playing rugby, and then I quickly kind of reevaluate that when I was speaking to various teams across the globe, and I realized I actually didn't want to play anymore. So I'm actually in the real world, or the real world of whiskey. So it's a pretty enjoyable world to be in. So a big cliche, Scottish rugby player, that into the whiskey world. It's very Scottish.
Amazing.
Yeah.
Tell me more about the whiskey brand, because I didn't actually know that that's what you got into.
I'm with Dalmore whiskey. So there you go. Lots of it. You get given lots of it. They give it out like the Cadbury's factory. Not quite,
love that.
Yeah. So in the whiskey world of Dalmore, which is it's a lot of fun actually. I'm enjoying it.
And what is it that you're actually doing other than handing it out? There's that very good story about if you work on the, I think it's the Roundtree's Quality Street. Is that Quality Street? And you're allowed to eat as many as you like. And after 48 hours, people are so sick, they never touch another one. I wonder if that's the same.
Kind of like that with whiskey, yeah, it is kind of like that, but not with the good stuff, I don't think. They keep the good stuff back. But no, I work with their private clients. So people that want to, basically in a nutshell, people that want to buy really old, really expensive casks of whiskey to drink.
Right.
So it's fun.
How much of, I keep hearing that people send whiskey out to China and they mix it with Coca-Cola. Are you doing good business out there, or are you actually selling it to people who have it as it's meant to be drunk?
Yeah. We know most of our business is in China actually.
There you go.
Over in Asia, but I think hopefully they're not drinking it with Coke, but I can. As long as they're buying it, I don't care exactly.
It's very nice to catch up. I've never really done a great deal with you, but I've always sort of lived vicariously or sort of kept in touch with you through Rory Lawson's WhatsApp channels. He and I had many a breakfast on far too many Pro 14 games, and there was always sort of lots of waffle going between the two of you. How are you post putting your boots in the back of the cupboard? Are you missing it, or are you sort of quite delighted it's all over?
I'm not missing it.
Yeah.
At all, and I think people kind of raise an eyebrow at that, and then people instantly think, "Oh, did you not enjoy it?" I just had enough by the end, and I think the circumstances of how it ended were kind of a bit depressing when you look back. But now you have a year. It's almost been a year since I last played a game, and I feel like I've said it before. I feel like when I watch Six Nations or I watch whoever, I can't believe that I played that game, like full stop. I feel like I'm so far removed from the game now, and it's only been a year. But yeah, I didn't really enjoy. I go further. I hated the last 2 years.
Why?
Of my career. Well, I snapped my Achilles when I was moving. I was captain of Scotland. I guess at the kind of supposed peak of my powers, I thought I was playing my best rugby. Snapped my Achilles. Why not agree to come back to Edinburgh, and then came back and then just kind of didn't get treated very well, I didn't think, and just didn't get picked. And I went to World Cup, came back, just like no one spoke to me, like nothing from coaches, no, just removed from all aspects of the team, leadership stuff, meetings. And you kind of just sense it was like, oh, you're just getting phased out. And I was like, I didn't feel ready to be phased out. So I think since I went after rupturing my Achilles, I think I played about 18 games or something. 4 of them were for Scotland at World Cup. So, do you know what I mean? It kind of just fizzled out. And also my body was just totally wrecked. Like training became so arduous. I think the older you get, people say that you always get up for the games. You always find a way to get up, but actually the training became just totally arduous and boring. And that's when I kind of knew I was like, I could move the family and go and play somewhere, but I don't think it's going to be any different.
Yeah. Did you call the people out who you felt should have been talking to you more as Scotland captain at that point, or do you have to kind of just suck it up and say, done?
Well, I think there's a bit of.
Did you leave a calling card at the end, so to speak?
Well, I think maybe there could have been if there hadn't been COVID and stuff, but there's only so much you can do. It's like, you pick the team and you kind of get to the point and you realize when you're younger, you go in and you knock on the coach's office and they tell you all this stuff, and ultimately they pick the team they want to pick. And there was young guys coming through, and don't get me wrong, the guys that were playing were pretty handy, but I kind of felt like I went from being signed and asked to come back, and I came back for less money. I could have stayed at Scarlets where I was very well settled, very well respected, captain the team, and I came back and I just felt like, I know the ruptured Achilles didn't help, but I was kind of like, okay, we'll just put you aside now. I kind of left a bit of a sour taste in my mouth when I finished.
It's very interesting. And we were talking, I mean, we had Carter on our main show the other week, and we were just sort of talking about the fact that very, very few players go out on their shield with a big trophy or with a World Cup. It seems that 95% actually sort of leave quietly through the side door while everyone else is looking the other way. And it's very impressive, actually, that you've managed to sort of park it and move on quite as quickly as you have. Have you had moments where you've been like,
there was times when I was like, and I totally just flipped between the two. Like, I was like, I know I deserve to have to be carried out on my shield. And you always kind of imagine that day of like getting to say kind of goodbye, and then just like kind of sounds a bit kind of over the top, but you kind of do it on your terms. But then I flipped up to the other side and be like, do you know what? I got out of it, without totally I kind of wrecked my body, but without grievously injuring myself and causing myself harm, and had a great living, traveled the world, made good money, essentially avoided the real world for 16 years. You look at it that way and you're like, well, okay, yeah, what does the game owe me? And then I looked at like guys far better players than me, the Paul O'Connells of the world. So I think other guys that just kind of got injured and then they just, you kind of limp out the side door, and you don't necessarily get that Rory Best, play for the Babas, the Principality. That kind of thing is kind of reserved for the lucky few in terms of timing and in terms of the status in their career as well.
And then there's O'Driscoll, who had the longest farewell tour, I think, of any band that's ever played it. He had the last away game, the last home game, the last Ireland game.
Then I guess people deserve that. But then, you look at someone like Paul O'Connell. I always think about Paul O'Connell, because I asked him, I chatted to him at a BBC game once, and I said, how did you finish? And he reminded me,
on a stretcher, wasn't it?
Yeah, he blew his hamstring completely off the bone and never made it back. And you're like, well, there's a guy that can kind of, go out that way. As I guess COVID's kind of comparably disappointing.
Yeah, fair play. And you've moved seamlessly into the media world. I was listening to Flats and Shanks the other day, and I never really sort of put two and two together, but they're being very effusive about the rugged Highlander and about the good looks that you own. And I sort of never, and now I get it, kind of thing. Is that, you quite enjoyed the makeup and the lavender and the frothy coffee of the media world?
No, I'm not part of the kind of lavender and potpourri world that Flats.
Not yet, you're not.
Not yet, you're not. No, I'm not. I always laugh, and I think I've got quite a sort of deep kind of Scottish. I think you hear yourself and you think you sound very like monotone, and the sound of your own voice is just appalling. But I don't know. Yeah, I enjoy the media side of things. I think once I came back, I was like, definitely don't want to coach, but I definitely didn't want to keep involved in the game. And I think actually being injured kind of gave me that chance to, if you go and do one game, you're crap at it. It's daunting. And it's like, whereas you go and you do a year's worth of doing internationals and getting used to it. And it's only probably just now I'm kind of getting to grips with what it is.
So you can also do 10,000 games and still be crap at it, as one or two of us know only too well. So
that's
take it if it's only
possible,
take it if it's only a year. But have you quite enjoyed the? I suppose. I mean, do you see the game now from a totally different angle? And I suppose the other question is, really, is as a captain, you always seem very relaxed with the media. But do you see? You're not quite that poacher turned gamekeeper, but do you see the role of the media in a different way now?
Yeah, totally. And I think definitely when I was kind of playing and doing it, I was like, I would never. You always are on the side of the players, and there was always something I kind of swore to myself that I'd always be on the side of the players, and you would never look to criticize players because you were a player. But then something, the longer you do it, you realize some things kind of need called out, and you also need to have an opinion and stuff. So I think there's the difference between having an opinion on things and being a bit of a dick about it and calling people out. So I hope I always manage to stay on that side of things. But I also get that refereeing stuff you can be a bit more opinionated on, and you can have a bit more of an opinion when you stop, because like you said before we started, like you can have that media playbook is just so bland when you speak to players. It's just the same answers you get, isn't it? And there's very few that kind of stick their head above the parapet and have an actual opinion or say something. And if they do it, they kind of risk having it thrown back in their face, somewhere down the line.
Yeah. Just in terms, I suppose, of your career as well. I mean, would it be fair to say that your career almost was a double peak in terms of there was a great start, and then there were a sort of, a lot of very good days with the Scarlets, but not quite with Scotland. And then that sort of, I mean, everyone will remember that Calcutta Cup game as a remarkable day. Does it feel like that when you look back? Does it feel like quite a roller coaster of a journey?
I'd say so, yeah. I think say the first 9, I think it was Glasgow, 9 years, kind of can hardly remember anything from that period. It was so long ago, and I think rugby was, and I was probably just kind of enjoying the roller coaster of it at that point, and kind of probably took it for granted. I think if I hadn't gone to Scarlets, I would have kind of finished my career and been kind of disappointed with my lot. I loved that, and it was kind of right place, right time with a great bunch of guys, coaches, and kind of loved it. Yeah, and internationally, I guess, had 3 years of not getting picked. And I totally didn't think I was going to play for Scotland again. And then to manage to come back, and I think I definitely look at I think I stopped at 43 caps. I was stuck on for 3 years. And then I went on to 70 something, 76. So I kind of definitely look at the latter, 30 odd as, outweighing the first 43 by just, some distance. Partly because I was captain, partly because Scotland were much better. We, much more, not successful team because we didn't win anything, but we had much more competitive Scotland team.
Why did the second bit sort of appear to be so much more successful? Was it changing your jock strap and new pair of boots, or was there a fundamental difference in your game?
I think you get older, I think we just better players. As a team, we had better players. And I look back and you're kind of caught up with it, and you think, definitely when you're in that bubble of living in Scotland and Wales was similar, you're in a little bubble of your own and you had no idea. But Scotland's, even smaller rugby wise. So you're living in this kind of sheltered environment which is Scottish rugby. And then you leave and you think, there's actually guys rugby had no idea about, and players and styles, and you just evolve. And I think probably having that 3 years out, I kind of just looked at rugby totally differently. And the way the Welsh guys looked at it was quite eye-opening in terms of they didn't really care about what happened outside of Wales. And I mean that in the kind of the kindest way. They look at themselves, and they focus on themselves, and they believe they're going to win, and they enjoy themselves hugely. And they got a lot of pressure on them. But we all definitely at Scots, we trained relatively well. We didn't train a lot actually, but we played quite hard and we enjoyed ourselves. And I think I tried to carry that into the second half of my career. And I was like, it's a game, we have a lot of fun doing it. And at that point, I kind of think I realized exactly the player I was. I wasn't trying to be a different player, and I was constantly getting told when I was younger to play slightly differently or do this. And when I went to Scarlets, they're like, just play how you play. And certainly that's what happened, I think, for the latter half of my career.
You won it in, what year did you win it with Scarlets? Was that 2018, 19?
2017 or 18, yeah, I think.
It was. I mean, how much fun was it under PVAC?
It was a lot of fun, yeah. I mean, it was kind of like, and I went down for the Scotland Wales game at Parc y Scarlets, and the carried over Six Nations game, and we were kind of laughing with the boys. It kind of, kind of amateur, and again, it doesn't sound that great when you say that, but we trained, we didn't train as full on as I have done at other places. We did very little contact. We kind of took the approach of kind of save yourself for the weekend, don't push too hard in the week, which I loved. It was great, take it easy. And then, but I just think it was a bit of a transformation. We had a great bunch of guys, who kind of timing wise, a load of guys went on that Lions tour. A lot of guys in the years that followed went on to play for Wales, Ty Burns of the world, who kind of came from nowhere. And I think we had like James Davis of the world to keep things lighthearted. So we had a total like kind of the glory days of this, and the guys refer to it, like they kind of refer back to it, like we definitely made a point of enjoying ourselves. The kind of young Welsh stars were in their kind of pomp and single and free and had a bit of money, and they kind of enjoyed themselves. So it was kind of quite fun to hang on to their coattails for a bit.
I think it was Hannibal Smith who says he loves it when a plan comes together. It's even better when you haven't got a plan and it still comes together. I mean, that's the sort of the ultimate glory, really.
Yeah, exactly.
And have you found now, we've sort of mentioned it a couple of times, that throughout your playing career, it's a very sort of tribal environment. But actually, once you retire, you sort of enter one club. Have you noticed that now, particularly, I suppose, working with the Beeb, etc.? When you're up on the gantry and in studio with Martin Johnson and Paul O'Connell and whoever it might be, Jeremy Guscott, I don't know, maybe that you are in that sort of one club.
Yeah, I think that's one of the things you learn. Like, you definitely are like in that little, like you say, that tribal kind of way of thinking. And even like when I was at Edinburgh, like the thought of like hanging out with the Glasgow guy or the Glasgow hanging out with the Edinburgh guys was kind of like a foreign concept. The Welsh guys didn't have quite as much of that because they all kind of live around Cardiff. But yeah, when you retire, you kind of, you do the BBC and you chat to like a Brian Habana, who I was like, how did this guy know my name to start? Or you speak to guys and you kind of just realize you're all part of the same club and you're all kind of everyone kind of gets on with where they are in life, and it's all just become this one big kind of group, which sounds a bit cringe, but that's kind of what it is. Everyone kind of looks after each other and people tend to help each other out in this world now, which is quite nice.
Yeah. And what's on the to-do list sort of moving forwards? You've obviously got the job. You're obviously not suited and booted either, but I mean, are you getting into working life? Are you quite enjoying the new challenge? Are you struggling with the alarm clock? Where are you at with everyday life?
Yeah, I wouldn't say I'm struggling. I think it's kind of different at the moment with COVID, isn't it? I think my job is quite different to what it would, and in a weird way, I've said before, I think COVID kind of prepared me for being removed from the guys. I think the one thing that I miss the most is seeing the guys every day, hanging out without realizing it, just mucking around. And like I said, you didn't really work for 16 years. Just to go from that to kind of sat in front of a computer has been a bit of a shift, bit of a change. But having kind of months and months and months of lockdown and just kind of not seeing these guys anyway kind of helps. So yeah, look, it's totally different. There's days when I'm like, this is hard, work is hard, but you turn your computer off and you kind of start again the next day. So yeah, I've always had that. I always had that kind of approach to rugby, that there was going to be a next step. I was never going to be someone like a Johnny Wilkinson or a Brian Driscoll who could, I'm sure they could just do anything and someone's going to employ them and ask them to do little bits here, little bits there. So I always knew I was going to have a 9 to 5 when I stopped. I just didn't know what it was going to look like.
How much prep did you put into that though? Because it's something, again, that we talk about quite often, is how often, and particularly with some of the young kids around the Premiership, how unprepared they are for the moment that you referred to with Paul O'Connell, where you get stretched off and that's that. Were you always someone who were good at collecting business cards and building a Rolodex and Christmas cards to the right people?
Kind of. I think I studied a degree which became kind of useless. Which I didn't
use. What did you do and where?
I did it in land management and surveying at Reading University. Well, all virtual.
Wow.
I did it in my house. I kind of thought I'll get a degree and I may or may not use it. It can't be harmful to have. But then I even said I was kind of, played 300 odd games, captained my country, had a pretty, I think, a reasonable career. And again, COVID came along and I still felt when it happened, I was like, what am I going to do? Like, what am I doing? I had a job lined up, which fell through. And then trying to find a job is the only time in my life I've ever been stressed. I remember lying in bed at night and I was like, all my money was in my house. I was like, am I going to have to sell my house? am I going to have to, it's the only time I've ever thought, how am I paying for my bills? And if you could bottle that and give that to young players,
yeah,
like they would take it seriously, because it's not real until you're in that situation. You know, I told the young guys, you have to put a bit of time into this. And I think I put a fair bit of time, certainly in the latter 2 years, when after rupturing my Achilles, spent a bit of time with businesses and tried to build that network, which everyone says you got to do. But until you're up against it and that happens, you're like, and I had three kids, all the bills coming out direct debit. And I was like, what am I going to do in a month's time when this stops? And you start looking back and I'm like, how many months have I got to find a job to start before I have to start thinking, well, this isn't sustainable? And it was pretty terrifying, actually. But I think, I prepared well. And I think my job very much came through, an introduction through a friend, through a network of a network, and a job appeared. And that's kind of the value that you have to say to guys. But yeah, trying to tell young boys to not, I don't know, play golf, play PlayStation, go for coffees, chase girls. Like, it's very hard. It's very hard if it's not real, and there's money coming in and you're having a great time. It's very, very hard to make that real.
Yeah, Boomer. I've heard it all before, I think, is the sort of the stock answer, isn't it?
And I did that. I said that.
Yeah. I would take everything that you've just said and I would bottle it in a different shaped bottle and say that even, something like the media, it can be all over before you. And I got to a point where I thought I will never earn another penny ever again. And have I therefore got enough? So Uber driving, all that kind of thing, just thinking fairly second-rate present. You just end up there, don't you? It's fascinating that even someone who's stood at the peak of the game like you have, that it can get to that point.
If you could see I wish, I don't know if I've still got the notebook, the things I was looking at doing to try to kind of earn some money. It was like from every sphere, from every industry, media, anything, anyone I'd ever spoken to, I was like, any chance of a job? Like, kind of a pandemic going on here, John.
Yeah. Worst financial crisis in 300 years. What are you looking to do? I've done fundraising over the last year as well. I mean, that's a whole nother story.
Yeah.
I'm conscious you've got a very big to-do list. I just want to know how homeschooling's been.
I've thankfully not had to do any. My wife's done most of it. I've got 3 boys, so there was a point actually with my wife, and that's when I was like stressed, when my wife she's a physio for the NHS, so she was working. And I was trying to homeschool my eldest whilst trying to stop our 3 and 2-year-old from, killing themselves, basically. Right. And then we kind of just...
the 3 killer bees of a different variety. That sounds like...
The next generation.
Yeah.
And it was... I didn't do anything. We tried, but our boys have 0 attention span. So we kind of knocked it on the head pretty early and just hoped they're going to fit in nicely to this generation that hasn't been to school.
I saw something the other day on social media that said, if you think we're fucked now, in 30 years' time, the country's going to be run by a bunch of kids who never went to school and were brought up by alcoholics. And I thought that pretty much sums up the last 12 months in our house. But
generation of idiots are going to be. You don't want to be getting treated by a doctor in about either 5 years, the guys that missed the first year of uni, or the guys that are sort of just skipped their hires and just go on. Yeah, you can be a doctor.
Yeah. Just solve it all with whiskey, I think, is the problem.
Yeah, exactly.
Have you got a game this weekend? What are you doing? This weekend?
I'm doing the Ireland game. Yes, I'm doing the Ireland game, and I'm going Glasgow Ospreys on Friday. So that big weekend gets me out of the house. We were deliberating the other day. Final question: Scotland. This is the real deal. We're still muddling and working it out, or it's another great false dawn. That's like the hardest thing, isn't it? That you tell me. What's the answer? I don't know. I'd like to think it was the real deal, and it seems to be. But I've been on the top of those kind of false dawns for my whole career. Arguably, maybe the last couple of years I had some relative success, but that's why I found so bad. And as the new media is I find it embarrassing when you have to do it. But yet, like, what the people like Eddie O'Sullivan came out. Eddie O'Sullivan came out and said, "Oh, I found the Scottish boys arrogant for, in the Autumn Nations Cup, saying they were going to go over there and win." And I was like, well, what do you want them to say? Actually, training's been really bad. We're actually not confident, and we're probably going to lose. Like, no, you have to say you're confident you're going to win. So I do like the way they're playing. I love watching them play, and obviously biased, but I think they're playing an exciting brand of rugby. Do I think they're the real deal? I think so. I think there's enough players running through that squad now if they can keep them fit. The Finn Russell, Stuart Hoggs, Hamish Watsons, these guys, I think if they can keep that kind of backbone, that team there, they've got enough world-class players there to challenge most teams.
We shall see. We'll roll that out off the back of the Six Nations.
Exactly.
And it could go either way. Very nice to catch up. Thank you for bringing a coffee. We'll let you get back to what is the next, what's on the to-do list? Big sales.
we're actually because we're in COVID, so we're doing team building this afternoon. So we're actually doing whiskey cocktail making this afternoon.
Very nice. Whiskey and Coca-Cola with your
Yeah,
Chinese
well, there we
clients.
go. Yeah, I'll suggest that one. That'd be my one.
Absolutely.
So I've got a bit of real work to do before that, though.
Yeah, good on you. Very nice to chat. Thank you for swinging by. Keep well. Good luck with the 3 killer mini bees, and see you on our telly box soon. Thanks.
Good man. Cheers, man.
Mate. Nice to chat.